Leaving the security of a full-time job and striking out on your own can be a very intimidating challenge, yet that is what entrepreneurs do. The challenges for many Hispanic would-be business owners in the Kansas City region are many. English language proficiency for some recently arrived immigrants is just one issue. Lack of knowledge of business licensing, legal issues, banking services, and other technical services available through the Small Business Administration and other organizations are other obstacles. Helping small businesses get connected is precisely why the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Greater Kansas City was started in 1977. Arturo Romo and his brothers, who came from Jalisco, Mexico in 1997, were faced with many of these challenges. But fortunately for them, they came into contact with an organization which could assist them in starting one of Kansas City's best-known restaurant chains and tortilla production companies in the region. Hector Barreto Sr., a fellow immigrant from Jalisco, was instrumental in getting them connected.
We came here to Kansas City in 1992. And we opened in this restaurant in 1993, and when we know Hector Barreto, Senior. And he be very successful for us to open in this place in the year, because we not really have any opportunities to do business on this city. So what happened when we know him, we just rented this place for him, and he helped us to get a liquor license with her daughter, his daughter Hector. Her name's Rosa, because neither my brothers and neither me, we now was a citizens, American citizens. When we opened in this place, he be helping a lot, and we go for a couple years, and I believe, I'm not really sure, in 3 years after we opened in this place, we involved in the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, will be part of that. And that was very good for us, because we start know more people in the city. We get a lot of meetings, and we participate in that. And I think 1997, we was the first small business here in Kansas City. We have a big ad in Kansas City News. So they help a lot, because we know a lot of more people, and then opening the big opportunities.
The Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Greater Kansas City was started in 1977 by a group of Hispanic community activists and small business owners who saw that many Hispanics who wanted to start their own businesses were struggling. The remnants of discrimination based on negative stereotypes about Mexicans and other Latinos were still lingering. Adding to that challenge was the lack of knowledge and experience that many Hispanic business owners had with the system. Esther Valladolid Wolf was a community leader who knew the way things worked in Kansas City through her many years in social work and community health services.
We were talking to the regular chamber about helping us out with funding, and that was for particularly, like for me, it was a nonprofit.
Right.
And mainly, it was that the ones that were working with them, we wanted money for businesses, well, the small businesses.
Right.
And we were talking about la tortilleria and la panaderia and a beauty shop and starting a upholstery, the little businesses.
Sure.
And we could not get in it. Nobody paid attention to us. We were personas non grata there. Mm-hmm. And so we decided, at that point, that we needed to have some power or some way to get into the system.
Right.
And then the idea was, well, we're going to form, interestingly enough, we're going to form a Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And it'll be interesting to you, at the very same time, we started a Women's Chamber of Commerce, and the Blacks started a Black Chamber of Commerce. Mm-hmm. It was at that time we all bloomed. We all decided it was time for us to do our own thing, because the Greater Chamber was certainly not interested in what we were about.
Clara Barreto Reyes, founder of Dos Mundos bilingual newspaper, remembers her uncle and the early days of the Hispanic Chamber.
But he was also, he got also his mind thinking about the bigger piece of the pie for the Hispanic community. And I think that's where he started going and getting together with people that can kind of fulfill his dream. And they started the chamber, but I was not involved in the chamber in the 70s. Because one of the things that I think that it was very important is that Hector started working with all the people from the city. He did not only like to be working with the people, he liked to be working with the city manager. Estela Morales era la secretaria del city manager. And she was very, very involved in the chamber, and she was bringing some money from the city. Berkeley was very, very fun to be helping us. He was really excited about all the ideas that Hector presented.
Besides an astute business leader and advocate for Hispanic business people, Hector Barreto was a family man. His wife, Mary Barreto, and daughter reminisce about him.
We met when we were 15, but we didn't start dating till he left. He went back to Mexico, and when he came back, we were the same age. We were 23, and we started dating. I had 5 children in 6 years. Hector, Ana, Gloria, Rosa, and Mary.
My dad never wavered from his goal and his message. And his message was education was important, political power, you need to be involved, and economic power. You need to have economic power. And he would say, if you need education, you need political power, and you need economic power. But with economic power, you can buy the other two. And that was kind of his big joke, because as long as you are making it, and making it is paying your bills and taking care of your family and making a difference in your community, as long as you are contributing, then they can't kick you out of the club. You're building the club. You are being recognized for your efforts in the club. So they're not going to kick you out of the club. And I think now he would say, people, don't worry. Don't worry. Keep on sending your kids to school. Keep on getting the education. Keep on working. Keep on working your businesses, because it's going to take a lot more than a bus or a wall to keep us from meeting our goals.
From a political perspective, Raul Paul Rojas, former Missouri state representative, knew that if Hispanic business owners were going to be successful, they needed to gain political influence with decision makers.
The formation of the Hispanic Chamber I supported greatly, because I knew the people who were looking forward for something to happen, and they did make it happen. Namely, people like Hector Barreto, Joe Lera, Jesse Flores, John Sanchez, who owned a good store down there on the boulevard at the time, and he retired, went to Mexico, and he's passed already like others, But yes, it became effective, and it became a good vehicle throughout the country. Consequently, not just the formation of the chamber here in Kansas City, but that led to the formation of a national chapter.
Estela Morales worked in the Kansas City, Missouri City Planning and Office of the City Manager for many years. She was instrumental in getting city officials to support the Hispanic Chamber.
The Chamber was really more like a social club. It worked very hard to promote the members that they had, but they really didn't have a voice here in Kansas City. And that's why they reached out to the city, the mayor and the city manager, because they wanted corporate America to become more involved with their businesses and promote their business, start getting more work for the Hispanic business owner, and just highlight what they were doing here in Kansas City. We had very few activities. If you call them activities, I would call them more programs. We had very few of those. Mostly what we were doing is going out into the greater Kansas City community, and we were trying to get them to recognize the Hispanic business. So it was more of a promotional type thing. We were giving out scholarships already, so we had that program set up for the Hispanics that wanted to further their education. But really structured programs didn't happen until after that. During the time that Frank Perez was president, and I believe shortly after that Charles Delgado was hired as executive director, we started establishing programs within the chamber. Programs for procurement, programs for marketing, just really the core things that a small business would need to know. Who do you go talk to? Where do you go? Those kind of things. We started to do a lot of meet and greets where we'd ask corporate America to come down and meet and actually have a meet and greet where we would talk about the business. We would have monthly where a small business would have a little seminar type thing and tell you what their services are, what their history is here in Kansas City, those kind of things. So we started more the marketing part of that, of the chamber, so that the name of the chamber would get out there, plus the business would reap some of the rewards of their membership dues. Two corporate America companies that come to mind from way back then is the City of Kansas City. Did a reach out to our businesses and started giving or awarding them contracts. Also KCP&L. KCP&L stepped up at the very beginning and actually made those opportunities available for our business members.
Freda Mendez-Smith, community activist and former small business owner, relates her involvement with the formation of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in Kansas City, Missouri.
So I've probably been a member of the local chamber since the mid-'80s, but not before that. But I had a lot of connection. I'll qualify. A lot of my memories are U.S. Hispanic Chamber working with the local. They had an office on Southwest Boulevard, across the street from Hector's restaurant. And we did conferences nationwide from there. There wasn't any national Hispanic business organization at that point. There was obviously LULAC and GI Forum. MANA was founded in '76 nationally, and then there's one other national Hispanic organization. And about the same time, I'd say NCLR was founded, about the same time as the National Chamber.
Teresa Pacheco followed Freda Mendez-Smith at the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Kansas City office as coordinator of conference planning.
From the very beginning, when Hector Barreto had the idea we need to get all these Hispanic businesses together here in Kansas City and form an office so they can get all their services they were needed. But it wasn't just Hector, it was Richard Barrera, it was Jesse Flores, Carlos Cortez, who now the Humanitarian Award is named after, and Jesse Flores is the business person, and of course Hector Barreto. There's all these awards after their names. Well, they were the ones that actually founded the local Greater Kansas City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Actually, the restaurant where we met, because at that time I worked for National Economic Development Association, there we had the meetings at the Gateway Center right there at 5th and State Avenue. We had meetings there. Richard Goodson had his restaurant there, so we would all get together and have meetings there. That's where it started. And believe it or not, the first banquet of the chamber was actually at Los Barreras restaurant, Richard Barreras. Well, that came about when, after the chamber, the local chamber was, Hispanic Chamber of Commerce was formed, then Hector, Jesse Flores, Richard Barrera, I'm going back, Carlos Etienne, Armando Hernandez, Juan Nogues, Henry Watson was the attorney to put all the paperwork together to get the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce incorporated. One of the most memorable things for me personally was when I was named the humanitarian recipient for the chamber. After being at the very beginning, seeing what it needed to be, all the things that were done, and then all the services, all the hard work of putting together a convention and the banquets, and then to sit down and then you just get a simple phone call and say, now you're going to receive the humanitarian award. That to me was one of the top things with the chamber. I really appreciated that.
She invited her twin brother, Tom Valverde, to get involved with the local and national Hispanic chambers. He encouraged the formation of a scholarship program that still exists and has helped the founder's vision to provide economic opportunity through well-educated Hispanic youth.
I'm involved with the chamber because my sister was very active, and she invited me. She said, "Tom, I think you would be really interested in what's going on at the chamber, and you've got some good ideas. Why don't you come and sit in on some of the meetings and give some feedback if you feel like you want to?" And that's how I got involved. I saw myself as an advocate for the community, and especially for people like myself who had just gotten out of school. Unfortunately, there were no scholarships, or very few, and I saw the sacrifices that my family made for me to go to KU. And so I thought it would be a good thing for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce to start up a scholarship. And several of the members really were for it and pushed the idea because they thought it would be a good way to get a promotional way to get the chamber out there. And the first recipient was Ramon Murguia.
Longtime community member and publisher of Kansas City Hispanic News, Joe Arce shares his thoughts about Hector Barreto.
I think what Hector taught us in the Latino community, the diversity of both political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. And back in the days when he got involved with the Republican Party, it wasn't necessarily a cool thing to do among Latinos. And what he really did was, I think he was a person that was a man before his time, so to speak, because, he got involved with the Republican Party and he actually met and was able to connect with the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan. And I believe that really actually helped those folks that were Republicans or leaning to the Republican Party, but were afraid to come out. And, we've had other civic leaders in our community that were Republicans, but they wouldn't speak up because they were afraid to. Hector was not afraid to speak up.
Rafael Garcia, owner of Garcia Architecture, shares his involvement with the Hispanic Chamber.
So I came back, and that was the middle 80s. That was a vivacious time. And my sister says, "You got to come over and see what we're doing over here." And it was a little office off the plaza. It was probably their second office because they started, I think, on the west side, if I'm not mistaken. And I know Teresa Pacheco has filled in all the blanks on those kind of pieces because she was involved with those early meetings. But so we compared notes and compared stories. But it was Marisol, my sister, who really brought me in, and I was a young kid, and to meet and to understand what was going on there. And Hector wore a suit every day. Jerry wore a suit. We're doing business. This is serious business here. This isn't just like my dad's Guayabera coming from the restaurant working. These are suits. And I remember taking note of that at an earlier age, but really my first curb appeal exposure to it, the appearance was all about serious business.
Cici Rojas, former board member and executive director of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Greater Kansas City and vice president of the United States Hispanic Chamber in Washington, D.C., reflects on her work.
Evelyn Lopez actually was the person that got me involved in the Hispanic Chamber years ago. And I became a board member in the mid-90s. Well, at that time, it was, with the exception of the social service agencies, and we had the El Centros and the Guadalupe centers that were doing great work, we didn't have anybody that would be that focal point for people that aspired to be in business or had small businesses or were working in corporations, and that was the only real avenue that we had or that we believed could be something of strength and would give us a true voice, a collective voice. I was vice president of the United States Hispanic Chamber. I actually went to work for Michael Barrera, who recruited me when he became the CEO, and I had responsibility for working with corporate partners, and so that's really how I built a nice corporate network. And then I worked with the local chambers of commerce, and then the other national associations like the Black Chamber of Commerce, the Urban League, of course, the Hispanic Bar, and all those others.
Michael Barrera, son of Richard Barrera, one of the founders of HCCGKC and former board member of the Hispanic Chamber and former president and CEO of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber, shares his insights.
The makeup of the chamber, it's so much more diverse. You got people from Venezuela, from Cuba, Puerto Rico, and they were all there back then, but there's so much more now, and I think that's great. And I love seeing the youth of the chamber. You know, Carlos is getting old, but he's still trying to stay young. But no, putting on the side, but I think he's been great at attracting different folks. He's been great at getting your smaller businesses. I think that's real important for chambers to do. Make sure your board is diverse, but make sure you have a certain number of small businesses on that board, because that really is what Hispanic business is all about. I think it's what I've always thought about, even in the past, now, and even in the future. A chamber, any chamber should be about two things. Are you helping your members make money, or are you helping your members save money? And then also think about the education. You start with those two things first. Then you think about, can you help out look at what your particular community cares about. Education will always be very, very important. But you also look, and then if you get involved politically, make sure you be as nonpartisan about it as possible and stick on the issue, not on the party or not on the particular personalities. It's hard not to do that because we're very passionate people.
Valerie Collazo represents corporate America. She explains why ethnic-specific chambers are important to large corporations.
I was born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri. Spent my high school years in Hickman Mills, at Hickman Mills High School. Moved to Lee Summit, and that's where I started my career with Western Electric back in the day. Moved to AT&T, and that's when I became involved with the Hispanic Chamber. When I started working for AT&T, we were very involved in the community, so that's why I got involved with the Hispanic Chamber. Just started volunteering for events, and then after I was involved with events, I started doing little things like working on the golf tournament, working on the fiesta. And then I actually, about in 2005, went to Aquila. When I was at Aquila, my VP at the time, Norma Dunn, asked me if I would take her place on the board because she was moving for a bigger and better job. And I did, and it was probably one of the best moves I ever made. I became really involved with the chamber then. I was appointed to the board then I got elected to the board. Then I became vice chair and then chair for the Hispanic Chamber, which is one of the things I can say I'm really proud of. I think the chamber is a great avenue for businesses in the community, for very small businesses, for corporations to meet small businesses, and also just for our youth. It's really been a good avenue for our youth. It's really helped them with education. It's really helped youth realize all the things that are out there for them that they can take advantage of, and that if they follow their dream, they can get to where they want to be.
Dr. Stephanie De La Torre wanted to start her chiropractic medicine practice in Kansas City when she finished her degree in 1992. She soon discovered that the Hispanic Chamber could help.
You know what I liked was, as I was starting my own business, I had gone to other chambers, and it was just really difficult. I would go in, and the hospitality wasn't there as it was in the Hispanic Chamber, and from the Hispanic Chamber, I really became friends with members. My best friends I met through the Hispanic Chamber, and they helped me grow my business, and they helped me learn about business, and they encouraged me to get engaged with the Latino community. Serving on the Hispanic Chamber Board, of course it was a lot of work. It's a working board. But one of the things that I always really enjoyed was the camaraderie that the board members had with each other. When Cece was president, it started when Cece was president. After a board meeting, we would all go to Mi Cocina on the plaza, and we'd all have dinner and drinks, and we'd get to know each other, and we'd all build friendships we really grew as friends on that board.
Thomas Carignan, former HCC GKC board member, remembers his path to board leadership.
I was on the board, I think, when we chose Carlos. And so that was 10 years ago or so. And then I had served as treasurer, committee chair for a couple of committees. And actually, Rick Chavez, who's been a great friend and mentor of mine, Rick Chavez, awarded me the Chairman's Award one year at the gala. And then I became chair for two. The one that I would say most closely would be Manny Lopez. He was, there's a great story I like to tell about Manny. I'm a young banker. I was probably, 25 or 26. And I introduced myself, hey, Mr. Lopez, how are you? And we got to talking, and he asked me where I worked. And I said, I worked at Commerce Bank. And he said, Commerce turned me down for a loan when I just got out of the Army, and, back in the 60s or 70s. And I said, well, Manny, I wasn't born then. And he just kind of gave me a hard time about his past experience. But he's probably the one that I interacted with the most, at least that were in that first generation of folks around the chamber. I think one of the neat things about the last 10 or 15 years of the Hispanic Chamber here in Kansas City has been, started as a grassroots organization, still definitely has those roots. Over time, I think the organization has become better at operating a business. It's become better at being strategic. It's become better at really outreach into the community, things that you see as an entity matures. I think the Hispanic Chamber is every year gets better and better.
Robert Barrientos, former HCC GKC board member and member of the Greater Kansas City Hispanic Collaborative, tells how Kansas City BizFest was started and how Latinos of Tomorrow and other programs evolved.
In about 2002 and 2003, Jeanette Pringer, Cece, and Paul Rodriguez went to the U.S. Hispanic Chamber national deal, and they heard about BizFest. So they came back excited that maybe one way we can help that demographic group, primarily children of foreign-born parents, was to get them involved in a entrepreneurial program called the Kansas City BizFest. Got involved with that, helped them raise the money to bring the program here, and then continued with that. And that happened in June, and within 6 months, the kids that participated in that program wanted to do, something more. So Cece had asked me, because I was at one time on the board of directors of the United States Junior Chamber of Commerce, and she thought, do you think we could model a program for under that? So we tried it for like 6 months, and because they were high school students, there was a lot of restrictions. But most of these students also wanted to go to college. The original BizFest was primarily for freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. And the emphasis in that training was first youth development, all the things stages that a young person goes through during that period. So the first day and a half was concentrated on youth development, and then into how do you plan to start a business. And the business plan was to eventually do some kind of competition where they did their presentations, and then the winner won scholarships, which wanted to start our own. With his help, your help, we started we moved Latinos of Tomorrow into more of a college access and readiness program.
In 2004, the first Kansas City BizFest was held at the General Motors plant in Fairfax, Kansas City, Kansas. A student by the name of Crystal Perez competed in the 4-day workshop and proposed the formation of a junior chamber of commerce for young entrepreneurs. Her idea sparked the formation of Latinos of Tomorrow, sponsored by the Hispanic Chamber's 501(c) not-for-profit collaborative.
My name is Crystal Perez, and I would like to share a quote with you from Gordon B. Hinckley that states, "We are part of a chosen generation. Limitless is our potential, magnificent is our future, if we don't let it drift away in an aimless and fruitless manner." This quote became the tipping point to creating what is now the Latinos of Tomorrow, a seamless developmental pipeline where youth are empowered to drive positive change and are equipped with the tools to shape their communities as they cultivate their talents through educational, professional development, mentorship, and active citizenship. Latinos of Tomorrow was my business plan in the July 2004 BizFest competition, a 4-day entrepreneur boot camp where we were taught how to create a business plan from the bottom up. The original concept of LOTS, or Latinos of Tomorrow, was of a junior chamber of commerce. My intentions were not to win the competition, but to deliver a service that could bridge the gap to an existing need in my community. Latino dropout rates were skyrocketing, and college access, readiness, and retention programs were not available at that time. I wanted future generations to have that entitled privilege of education, because education is power, and through that power, be able to create opportunities through the entrepreneurship spirit. So what did I do? I gathered all the participants after the competition and started the Latinos of Tomorrow. Latinos of Tomorrow is now a year-round program. It has grown to one of the largest and most respected student programs in the KC metro area, assisting more than 300 students annually from 8th grade to post-secondary, graduate, and professional completion programs. 13 years later, seeing the fruits of what was planned to blossom fills my heart with joy. We have lots of alumni giving back and becoming mentors, many who are law, dental, medical students, public administration graduates, and entrepreneurs. It makes me so proud, but this success is attributed to a combined effort of all who have served.
Amaryllis Valdez Dempsey was a Sprint Corporation employee when she was asked to participate with the Hispanic Chamber. She has continued her involvement as a sponsor and mentor in the Chamber's youth development programs.
Well, I first got involved in 2005 with the Greater Kansas City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and it was through BizFest. That's when I first met the chamber members, and it was at KC BizFest. It was held at Aquila at the time. And I attended mostly as an observer of the program, just to see what KC BizFest was all about. I worked for Sprint at the time, and so we had an employee network, and through the employee network I heard about KC BizFest, and so we decided that as part of what we were doing with the employee network that we wanted it to check it out. Well, I was very impressed with the organization of the program, the KC BizFest, and I thought that it would be a worthwhile program for Sprint to be involved in. And so I started being involved with KC BizFest, and then later on I joined, I think it was like a year later, it was suggested that there was another organization within that the Chamber also supported through the Greater Kansas City Hispanic Collaborative called Latinos of Tomorrow, and it was recommended to me that I should look into Latinos of Tomorrow because they needed support from other professionals in the Kansas City community.
In 1977, a group of 25 Hispanic businesses and community leaders founded the Kansas City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Greater Kansas City. In the 40 years since its humble beginnings, it spawned the development of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in 1979. Over the last 40 years, it has stayed true to its mission to create, promote, and develop economic opportunities within the Hispanic market and business community. Carlos Gomez, president and executive director since 2007, shares his thoughts.
When you think of the history of this chamber, there are so many board members and individuals that have influenced where we are today. In the early years, of course, Hector Barreto, Richard Barrera, Esther Wolf, Clara Reyes, Manny Lopez, all of them. Then you come further on, Jerry Adriano, Paul Rodriguez, Bill Torres. In the 2000s, Jeanette Hernandez-Pringer, Henry Sandate, Tom Garcia Kerrigan, Valerie Collazo. The list goes on. You know, my special time, I think someone that really needs to be acknowledged is Stephanie De La Torre. Stephanie De La Torre was chair during the worst economic time of the history of this country during the recession. And she really showed leadership and pulled this organization through that time. A lot of organizations you saw go away during that time. And a lot of businesses went away. Corporate was cutting their funding. Small businesses necessarily didn't have money. Stephanie did an incredible job leading us during the recession that we had. And of course, if there's one person that really stands out in my mind, and this person was involved, I think, in every decade, and that's Estela Morales. I call Estela the godmother of this chamber. She's our anchor. If it wasn't for Estela, this organization would not be here. Estela, she's rock solid. Her relationships, not only locally with City Hall, with congressmen and women, she's very active in the community. She has brought all those resources to this organization and to the membership. And I would say, if anyone, Estela Morales is the one that I think of most that has probably had influence on this chamber.
Jeanette Hernandez Prenger started her business, ECCO Select, in 1995 and has grown since then as a premier minority and woman-owned business in the nation. She credits some of her success to both the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Greater Kansas City and to the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and shares her insights for the future.
I was originally approached by Michael Barrera, then the president of the Greater Kansas City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and Cece Rojas, who was our executive director of the chamber at the time, when my company began appearing on the list of top minority-owned businesses in the Kansas City Business Journal. They came to my office, sat down, and I immediately took a liking to Cece. She talked about the chamber values, its advocacy and assistance for Hispanic small businesses, and I became a member, and not too soon afterwards became involved with the chamber, engaged, and eventually a board member, and then ended up as chair. I was involved with the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce as a board member. I was voted in during a time where they were going through a transition with their president. And when Michael's resume came through, we were very excited about somebody who had deep roots and a history with the United States Hispanic Chamber. His father, along with Hector Barreto Jr.'s father, were one of the original founders of the United States Hispanic Chamber. And it felt great to have somebody who understood the roots and the true mission of a chamber that would serve all Hispanic chambers. I think some of their biggest challenges are going to be scalability. We're a growing community. The Hispanic population has a young, growing community. A way to create your own wealth is to have your own business. And for us to be able to serve the young entrepreneurs, as well as those that are already established, they're going to need bandwidth. They're going to need to be able to organize in a way that they can produce programs that are scalable. They're going to need to be able to have commitment from corporate sponsors and other, not just corporate sponsors, but other Hispanic businesses like myself, contributing and offering our own resources, time, talent, treasure, to help other Hispanic businesses grow. So I see the model changing a little bit. I also see a challenge in that Hispanic businesses, and this isn't just Hispanic businesses, but minority businesses and women businesses, there are so many of that type of business in which they do not become big businesses. They don't become scalable. And our job at the Hispanic Chamber, I believe, is not only to help those startups become successful, to become sustainable, but also to help them grow. And the first way you do it, because our Hispanic Chamber is like its own little entrepreneurial business, is that they have to be able to put that practice into place in their own organization. I can't thank the Greater Kansas City Hispanic Chamber enough for everything that I benefited from, as well as other small businesses. And I believe a lot of our corporations would want to send their appreciation also to the founders who had the foresight to organize, and to all of those individuals, staff, board members, everybody involved with the Hispanic Chamber for 40 years of great work. Hopefully 10 years from now, I'm congratulating you on another happy anniversary.